have never once had a desire to be a doctor. Like, I just don't want to, it's not
Yeah,
something on my radar. It's not something that I think I have the skill set to do. I'm not bent in that direction. I don't have a desire to do it. Um, and so from the time that I was born to the time that I die at some point, I will never have a desire to do that and never have the
right.
opportunity,
This may
desire
be
and
one of those
ambition
pauses. We
to
have
own my
six
own
of
business,
those.
which was part
Can you
of
hear me?
Bobby's story was just,
Hey, everybody. This is Gary Smith with Nectar Bridge and Nectar Bridge Podcast. I do back office support for small business in the North Alabama and Huntsville area. And I've got a good friend and a guest with me, Nathan Eldridge with Vantage Connect. How you doing, Nathan?
yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to get you in and talk with you today because I'm a part of Vantage, and I know you've got a lot of great events coming up, and also groups that I'm sure you want to talk about, like the roundtable groups and so forth. For
Yeah.
starters, what events do you have coming up?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So we do about 4 events a year, and we do them about once a quarter. That's typically the rhythm. And a couple of those events are larger events where we bring in speakers from outside of this particular metro area, and we'll do a keynote talk somewhere at one of the local venues. That's two of the 4 events. There are two other events where we like to highlight local Christian leaders and get them up on the stage and just give them a chance to tell their story. As a matter of fact, I had lunch today with our upcoming guest, a lady named Bobby Bradley. So our team,
Yeah.
we were at lunch today with her. Bobby is one of the founders of the Village of Promise here in town. It's a nonprofit working here in Huntsville to try to end generational poverty. It's a great ministry. She's a great lady. But um, on I guess coming up on August the 13th, Bobby's going to
Okay.
be speaking at Stovehouse. And um, it's just a compelling story, to hear her
Yeah.
story as an entrepreneur, where she worked for the government, she worked for Northrop Grumman for years, but then to hear the story of how she built a company on her own with a partner, but built a company, sold it to SAIC, and then founded a
Oh,
nonprofit. And so it's just
okay.
a great story about what it actually looks like to uh, come into those places of leadership in unexpected ways. I mean, the things along the way that open doors, the people that open doors, the conversations that happened, the influence of her parents, um, and then being terrified, at times feeling like I'm not the one to do this. It's almost like I think there may be some misconceptions where when people hear leaders speak, they're like, oh, they must be the people who have it together, you know. And then when you have leaders like Bobby and others who will get up and be honest and
Yeah,
vulnerable and say, you know what, I didn't know if it was going to work, or we had to go to
absolutely.
our team because there was a huge kind of financial crisis, and that's
Yeah,
what did the biggest change in our company. But somebody who's willing to be honest. So that's the story Bobby will be telling, is kind of the journey as an entrepreneur and then moving into the nonprofit world. But it's just a fantastic story. So we're doing that. And then in October, your friend Jordan Rayner, Jordan, into town,
you're a friend of mine.
and he'll be back in October, and he'll be talking about his book, The Sacredness of Secular Work, which is a fantastic take on how our work today can last for eternity. So it'll be a really great event.
Very good. Just to go back to Bobby for just a second, but I want to talk about Jordan Rayner too. That experience of moving from one thing to something else. And you
Hmm.
made the comment that people think leaders have it all together and never stumble and never never have a concern because after all they've got one thing licked, and then when they move on to something else, everything will be smooth sailing, right? But running a business is not the same thing as running a nonprofit. And uh, going from, say, working for a big corporation to being an entrepreneur on your own is not, those are two different things.
Yeah.
So there's certainly transferable skills, but I'll be interested in hearing her story about, how she made those jumps from one thing to another. That sounds like a great speaker. But Jordan Rayner has spoken Advantage events before, as I
Hmm.
recall.
Yep.
Uh, and he was a great speaker last time. I know the sacredness of secular work, and maybe we put the air quotes on secular work,
Yeah.
is a big theme of his. I'd almost say his entire theme. Just seems to run through almost everything he talks about, and doing work for the kingdom, even if it's accounting or back office support
I was
or
just gonna say it. Yeah.
bowling or running a bowling alley or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's been a big source of encouragement for me, and something
Mm,
I think about a lot. Sometimes in church, you do kind of stand up that wall and think the very term secular work, which is why I put the air quotes on it,
yeah.
um, it implies that, well, you do something over here for the Lord, and then you go off and make your living, which can honestly get you not only feeling futile, but also get you into ethical problems and that sort of thing, because you can just justify things. So I do that over here, but I do that over there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, for me personally, even in my own journey as a Christian, from the time I was in college up through my career for many years, even as a pastor, um, the idea, there was this kind of separation in my mind between people who had a job and people who had like a calling.
Yeah,
It's like the people in ministry of whatever kind, it's like they have some kind of, they're missionaries or pastors or whatever. They're called into that type of ministry. But the guy who's a CPA, the guy who's a doctor or whatever, they've got a great job, and there
yeah.
just was this bifurcation. But the truth is, like I'll use my brother as an example. And you and I've had this conversation before, but my brother, he's a doctor, and
Hmm.
I have never once had a desire to be a doctor. Like I just don't want to. It's not
Yeah,
something on my radar. It's not something that I think I have the skill set to do. I'm not bent in that direction. I don't have a desire to do it. Um, and so from the time that I was born to the time that I die at some point, I will never have a desire to do that and never have the
right.
opportunity.
Yeah,
My brother, on the other hand, he does have the desire and he does have the opportunity and he has the skills. And I think when we think about leading Nectar Bridge, it's like when you see the constellation of things line up, when you have a desire to do something, and you say, I just have this
this may be
desire and
one of those
ambition
pauses we
to
have to
own my
fix
own
in
business,
post.
which was part
Can you
of
hear me?
Bobby's story, was just she wanted to own her own business. You have a desire. Not all desires are good, but there's a desire component to our calling. And then there's also a skill set piece to it. Like, do you have the capability? Like, I may want to play and do that, um, but I'm never going to play in the NFL. I may I may want to be a professional musician, but I don't have the skill to do it. So you've got a desire. Do you have the ability? And then do you have the opportunity? If you say, look, I love music. I have um, I have the ability to play music. I'm good at it, but you can't make money doing it. You're the starving artist, and that's really not what God's calling you to do. That's probably
Yeah,
not what He's calling you to do. But when those three things line up, when somebody says, "Hey, man, I love doing this. I'm good at it," and people affirm that. It's not just that you feel like you're good at it. I mean, we've all known the person that may think they
yeah,
can sing well or they think they're really good at something, but it's hard to tell them maybe not so much.
yeah,
And then there's an opportunity or an open door. When those things line up, it's like that's part of the process of discerning. This is what God's actually called you to do at Nectar Bridge or me at Vantage or wherever we might be. Um, so yeah, but the idea that our work, that your vocation, your calling is just as sacred as mine, or just as sacred as a pastor's, it's foreign to many Christians. But I think that's where Jordan Rayner's trying to take people.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Also wanted to expand a little bit about what Vantage does generally, because Vantage is more than putting on these kind of events. Those are, I
Yeah,
think, the events that more people are exposed to than anything else Vantage does. It's often the gateway drug, if I may put it, to learning
sure.
about Vantage
Yeah,
and so forth. Um, I'll start with something that your chairman said, and it's really stuck with me. Vantage being kind of like campus ministry for grown-ups. But
Yeah.
go on from there. What all does Vantage do?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it. As a marketplace ministry, we really are. For many people, different ministries when they're growing up, they may be involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes when they're in high school, and then when they go to college, they may be involved in Campus Crusade or Young Life or some other campus ministry, and then they graduate and they go to work, and it's like high five, good luck, and that's it. And for us at Vantage, we want to carry that community forward and say, look, as adults, you still need community. We still are involved in developing people and discipling people to become Christ centered leaders who will be Christ centered professionals and lead Christ centered companies. But we want to carry that community forward. And in the same way that the campus ministry is at the college or FCA is on the ball field, Vantage is in the marketplace. So,
Absolutely. Um, and you do roundtable groups and also smaller groups, professional
yeah.
forums. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So we really have two types of groups, and the reason that we use the groups in general is because we will say that we believe leaders grow best in community. Leaders grow best in community. There's so much knowledge that we've acquired over the years, so many books on leadership. Gary, I know you've got a master's degree, and it's just like it's amazing how much information we have amassed, whether it's knowledge of the Bible, knowledge of the professional world, and we believe one of the ways that we grow is through honest, open conversations with other believers where we talk about how do we apply the things that we know. And when you're in a group with people who can be honest with you about the challenges and the opportunities in front of them, um, it's like it's like that community piece, the relationships, the encouragement, but also the honesty and candor and feedback.
Yes.
They're like the digestive enzymes that help us metabolize the things that we already know and appropriate the benefits. And so the two type of programs that we have professional forums that meet on a weekly basis, and they study things, everything from servant leadership to leading with greater purpose. What are our core values? We have studies directly on those things related to growing as a leader and how to integrate your faith at work. And those meet on a weekly basis, and they're typically between 4 to 6, sometimes 7 people in a group.
Right.
But those are weekly commitments for professionals at every level. And they're for men with men and women with women. And we find that that just opens the door for much greater transparency and vulnerability. And then we also have a program for executives or business owners. We call them executive forums. And so they're for people who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, large business owners, whatever they might be. And it's a half day retreat once a month. It's 4 hours once a month. 4 hours sounds like a really long meeting, but the purpose is not to have a 4 hour meeting, so to speak. It's really to have a 4 hour half day retreat where
Yeah.
where business owners and leaders can step out of their business and they can work on their business rather than working in the business. And so you're in one of those executive forums, Gary, and you've seen how it works. We eat breakfast together, and then we spend about an hour of our time checking in.
Right.
How are you doing spiritually, relationships, how's your work, and how are you doing stewardship wise with your health, your time, your finances, how are things going? So a chance for guys, and we have executive forums for women too, men and women. But we give people a chance to do an honest self-assessment, like how am I doing? How am I doing? And to check in with the group. Uh, the next hour after that is really devoted to opportunities and challenges. Typically, we'll have at least one business queued up to come in and say, "Here's what's going on in my business, and here's where I need your help. I need your feedback. I'd love to know what you guys do in your business. So I need best practices from you guys." And after we have the business presentation, uh, any other hot button items or urgent kind of fires that need to be put out, group members have a chance to say, hey, if we've got time, I'd like to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes talking about this issue. I need some feedback. So there's really about an hour to explore opportunities and challenges like that. The final hour is where we bring some content related to running a Christ-centered company. What does it look like as a business owner or a business leader to um, cultivate and lead a Christ-centered company? And we talk about what it looks like to integrate your faith as a leader in areas like corporate purpose and culture, marketing and sales, risk management, philanthropy, team building, all those things. So we try to cover a pretty comprehensive curriculum. It's about a 3-year curriculum altogether for our executive forums. But it's not comprehensive. It's not exhaustive. It doesn't cover every conceivable topic, but it's comprehensive in the sense that it covers all aspects of the business. But that's what we do. And at the heart of it, it's really like iron sharpening iron. It's
Yes,
leaders supporting one another, getting to know each other, developing relationships where they can be trusted advisors to one another, and holding each other accountable as they try to pursue excellence and lead well. So,
absolutely. And before I say anything else in response to that, I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought, but you said I have a master's. You promoted me a little early. I'm like 4 classes away from getting
oh,
that
gotcha.
master's at UNA, go Aurora Lions. But yeah, I do aspire to have that fairly soon. But to talk about what you just said a little bit, in my own limited experience, I'm fairly new to an executive forum and I've been in a smaller group. um, what you said is just really right on. The um, the need for somebody to talk with, to act as a sounding board, to act as a check on your spiritual values and how they are aligning with what you're trying to do in the workplace.
Hmm.
Um, Most of us have wives, and they are loving companions who have listened patiently to us talk for hours about whatever we got
Yeah.
going on in our work. But eventually, it's kind of like, that's nice, Nathan. That's nice, Gary. And it's just, can
Yeah.
we talk about something else? Maybe you talk about how you need to cut the grass or the kids or something besides the business. And
Sure.
most of us, by definition, everybody in the executive forum is an owner of a company or very senior leadership in a company. And the people in the professional forums are usually in, middle to higher stages of management as well. And when you are in those positions, especially owning a company, it can be really hard to think about anything else.
Hmm.
So it's a great
Yeah.
both sounding board as well as sometimes an opportunity to be invited to, get over yourself because your problems are not unique. You've not been um, uniquely challenged with these particular things. We all have dealt with similar issues, which is in itself comfort, but also you get some great advice. Just at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you do. There's a thing that I'm not a programmer or developer, but I used to work with them a lot, and there was a phrase. There is a phrase in development. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this, called rubber duck coding. So you take a rubber duck and you put it on your desk and you start talking to it. And the point of the exercise is sometimes just talking to yourself gives you some perspective. Oh, when I said that out loud, it didn't actually make a lot of sense. Maybe I shouldn't do that. So
That's funny.
sometimes the value of talking in a group is just you hear it out loud and you have witnesses to what you just said, and you just go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's a bad idea."
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's
That's
even
great. Yeah.
but it's even
And
better when you get some great advice. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no. I appreciate you sharing that. The whole the rubber duck coating. That's pretty funny. Um, I think we probably should just take a rubber duck to the next executive forum and set it, set it on the table. But I appreciate you saying that because one of the values is that when we've had business owners present their business, they don't have to reveal anything about their business that they don't want to reveal. It's not like everybody's doing a deep dive into their financials and stuff like that. Typically, they're higher level leadership issues that are being navigated. But if you were up to present at the upcoming forum, you and I would have a conversation to prepare so that I
Mhm.
would know that you have some sense of clarity about what you actually need from the group. And we would have an initial conversation, and that alone brings a measure of clarity for you to say, actually, this is what I need from the group. This is the real issue. This is why it's important right now. And here's how the group can best help me. right? Then you go into the forum, and when it's time to present, you present to the forum, and you get unbiased feedback from people who love talking about business as much as you do,
Mhm. Right.
and people who get the challenges, people who will be honest. I mean, I've seen it happen, and I won't disclose any details, but I've seen it happen where people have big ideas, and they say, "Man, I really think I want to do this," and they present the business opportunity, and they roll it out, and people in the group ask really probing questions. What about this? How's this going to work financially? What's the scope? Are you ready? To the right
Yeah.
time? And then somebody raises their hand, and they're like, "Hey, Gary, to be honest, after listening to these guys, I don't think you're going to make any money on this. Like,
Right.
I think you're going to spend a lot of money rolling out this new program, and there won't be any return on your investment. And so my concern for you is that you'd spread your team too thin, that you would deplete your capital, that you'd have a huge opportunity cost here. And I just don't think it's a good idea, but that's just my perspective. And for the business owner, like, it's rare to have people who are willing to tell you that in a loving way,
Right.
that have no vested interest in your company, but they're willing to say, "Hey, I just want to be honest," you know. Um, so that's just really, what does it say in Proverbs? That faithful are the wounds of a friend. When somebody's just honest with you, even if it's not easy to hear it,
Right.
it could be a
Well,
really
there's
valuable thing.
right. There's the way the Proverbs writer put it, and then there's the way we say it in Alabama, which is calling the baby ugly. It
Yeah,
takes real courage sometimes to call the baby ugly, which
yeah,
sounds like a terrible metaphor, but when you doing just exactly what you said, is like you hear somebody out and you ask good questions, and then you say, "Yeah, have you thought about this particular problem? Are you sure
hmm
you can get over this particular thing?" Um, in working with business owners as I do, I see a lot of times uh, it's like the idea is basically good. Do you have the resources to execute it?
hmm
Um, so, and there's a parable about that too. Building a wall, not being able to finish. So,
yeah.
um, that's another part of the sounding board thing is, okay, this is a great idea. Can you withstand the 6 months that it's going to take to really get this going, because it's not going to be an overnight success. Nothing, things like that rarely are. So you have those kind of discussions. And um, uh, to
If I
talk
could,
about what I go ahead.
let me jump in real quick and just say this. How, and I'm going to ask this kind of rhetorically, and then give an answer.
Yeah.
But the idea would be like, how valuable is that kind of feedback?
Yeah.
If you're going to try to stand up a new division within your company, but somebody they help you see something that you were missing, and it causes you to slow down and maybe not even stand that division up at all. I mean, that feedback alone from a group of people, it might be a $10,000 feedback,
Oh yeah.
$50,000 feedback. I mean, it could be invaluable just to ward off the trouble that's coming that you didn't quite anticipate, but somebody helped you see it. And the same
Right.
thing is true relationally. It's not like everything we talk about is business. I mean, in these forums, people are very honest about what's going on in their marriages, what's going on in their family, what's going on. I mean, so the issues that come up are often professional in nature, but you've been in there. I mean,
Yeah.
the men and in the women's forums, they're very transparent about what's going on at home, because we're not just business people, we're people. We
Right.
go home to wives and children, and it's sometimes the the business has a tremendous pressure that it puts on the family and the marriage, and just having a place to talk about that, and to see how other people have handled the stress and the challenge, and
Right.
super super helpful.
Absolutely. And kind of segueing off that point, that's uh, frankly, running a business can be hard on a marriage in the best of times. I grew up in a family business, and I often
Hmm.
say we were a highly functional, loving family, which made it possible for us to be a functioning business. But I have all too often seen where, if a family or a couple already have strains and cracks in the relationship, being involved in a business can make it worse.
Mm,
Uh, the Something I frequently see, I sometimes jokingly say that my in my business I'm trying to replace people's wives. I better explain that carefully, because a guy who does a trade, and it's usually a guy who's doing a trade, and he expects his wife, who's often working outside the home already for 8 hours, hey, could you do the books for me, and so forth. And if the spouse is enthusiastic about doing that and wants to do that and they can make it mesh, great.
yeah.
Sometimes it's kind of like one thing too many.
Hmm.
And that, infomercial for myself, that, that's something I help with if the spouse is not, able or interested in doing that. I've had at least one client tell me that, that's been really beneficial to their marriage, because they no longer their spouse no longer has to see everything about their business that
Yeah.
frankly they would just as soon leave at the hat rack.
Right.
So that can be helpful in providing that kind of separation. um,
Mm,
I definitely appreciate what you're doing, brother. And
yeah. Well,
I'm, if I can say another self promotional thing, I'm a sponsor for the Jordan Rayner event later
absolutely.
this year in October, and I look forward to seeing him again. If you're not pumped up by listening to Jordan and seeing Jordan speak,
Mhm.
check your pulse, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna do a fantastic job. He is definitely he brings the energy, but there's so much substance. One of the things I appreciate
Yes,
about Jordan Rayner is that there's so much substance to what he said. It's just it's not just kind of a whiz bang, great ideas. I mean, there's real depth and biblical substance for people who are trying to connect their faith to their work. I mean, he's you just don't want to miss what he has to say. He's an important voice right now in the faith at work movement.
absolutely. And let me pick up on what you said about, there being some substance. I think we've all read books about management or about leadership, and you read it and then you just kind of go, wow, close the book. What did that actually say? What can I really take away from that? And that is not the case with Jordan's books. If you don't get 10 really solid things that maybe make you change your behavior, read it again, because it's definitely in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me plug this real quick. I've got one on my.
Yeah.
You said that about his book, so the sacredness of secular work. This is
Yeah.
what Jordan will be talking about when he comes in October.
Okay.
But his other book, Redeeming Your Time, great resource. Well, it's one of his other books. He's got a new one out on several. It's got a series of mini biographies in it.
Right.
Um, that's another great resource. Um, and then he's got a great podcast. I mean, he's done a lot of great work. So
Absolutely. Well, we will leave it there, Nathan. I appreciate your time, and look forward to talking to you soon.
yeah, see you, Gary. Thanks, man.
Thanks.